with investment in both personnel and training will be a priority once voted into office. Now, please join us as we talk to the presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party, the SDP, Professor Jerry Gana. Professor Jerry Gana, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for this honor. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Now, you emerged as SDP presidential candidate following a court ruling.
That's right.
And there are still many people who don't understand what transpired that led to that. Could you enlighten us a little about what happened? Why did you go to court?
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think it's important, as you have observed, for people to get to know the context of what happened. When we came in to the SDP a second time, because I was in the original SDP, that was in April 2018. It is in this very place that we had a meeting of the key members of the leadership and reviewed the Constitution, and a number of amendments that are considered very important were taken, including the issue of rotation and zoning. At this particular point in Nigeria's history, there will come a time when the president of Nigeria may even come from the same family again, and nobody will bother. But at this time, when we are laying the foundations of nationhood, when we want participation and peace and harmony and stability, we felt there should be a balance of political forces. So it was not really zoning per se, but a winning strategy. It would be wrong for a party that wants to really win to concentrate all its key offices in one part of Nigeria. Because the Constitution requires that not only would you have a majority, but you have to have a quarter of the votes in 2/3 of the states. So there must be this element of spread.
Right.
To gain it, you now spread your own political offices in such a way that there will be a national spread. That is really part of the wisdom. And so a very important provision was debated and accepted, that the position of national chairman and president cannot come from the same part of Nigeria in terms of north and south. That is to say, if the chairman happens to come from the south,
as in this case,
Chief then the president must come from the northern part. It was so agreed that our national chairman, after that approval in May, actually gave a national kind of press conference or interviewed, which went on one of the key dailies and was carried, to say, now look, we don't want our supporters to be in any doubt. As we proceed, we expect that the presidential candidates of our party will come out either from North Central or Northeast or Northwest, because of that understanding. Right. And everybody was happy about it. So we kept mobilizing, and because of that provision, and because of that conviction, and because of that acceptance, most of us who came out were from the northern part of Nigeria until 2 or 3 weeks to the convention. Then emerged the former governor of Cross River. Many of us were surprised, really, and we kept asking some of the key officials who said, look, what is the meaning of this? We hope this is not going to create problem. As far as they were concerned, they said, no, it was participation and so on. It wasn't anything to do. So 3 people that were interested in the South, one of them wisely withdrew long before the convention. They said, if this is the understanding, he's willing to go with that understanding. 2, one from Delta, and then suddenly this other person from Cross River, kept on. And we were very, very surprised that at the convention itself, the majority of delegates were definitely going for me, because I visited them, not only in their states, but the last minute went to each zone. I was there in the northeast, I was there in the north central, and went to Enugu for the southeast, south, and then southwest. I saw them in Premier Hotel, Ibadan. So there was a very clear understanding that I was the front runner and really basically accepted. There are certain things that played out which, given the leadership within the nation, I don't want to refer to. It happened to me, was said about us. Totally unfortunate. It has religious connotations, and it was totally unfair. And that is why what they used for about 3 or 4 states, delegates were now told that kind of lie, and then were told that they were to vote this pattern. That is where the 200 votes difference came. But immediately after the convention, it became very clear that if we are to really, as it were, sustain this party on a democratic basis, we should return to the provision of the Constitution. So we went to court, not because of the processes at the convention, but an interpretation of a ruling of the Supreme Court that parties must obey their own constitution. And if that is the case, the provision in our constitution, if it was obeyed, then the screening committee should have screened out these other 2 candidates on the basis that they do not qualify to stand. That is why I went to court. And the court gave an interpretation which was very sound, very clear, very logical, and without any ambiguity at all.
Now, the man who emerged before the court judgment was Mr. Donald Duke.
Yeah.
The information is that he intends to appeal. In the meantime, the national chairman, Chief Falai, who we referred to earlier on, is also reported to have said that you should hold on until the Court of Appeal rules. It is also said, you said you couldn't.
No,
Many will say why.
Yeah. Well, with due respect, you know, we may not be lawyers, but it is very, very clear that a ruling of a competent court have to be obeyed. And it is until it is set aside by a superior court. All right? So a high court gave a ruling, a judgment, not just a ruling, a judgment. And it was a declaratory judgment. There were certain 7 declarations giving directives as to what is to be done. And it was very clear, I'm the candidate of the party. The other person is to not to parade himself as the candidate of the party. The party was under that direction to present my name to the Independent National Electoral Commission, and the Independent National was also directed to receive. So this way, I was obeying the court judgment. Not to do so was to disobey the court. I got a judgment, not just a mere ruling, a judgment, saying that I am the candidate. And therefore, with due respect, Chief Olufale ought to have obeyed the judgment of the court. If I were to be really nasty to my chairman, if I went back to the court, he was actually, as it were, disobeying court ruling, court order, court judgment. And you know, it is a very, very serious offense. But I didn't want to press the case. So in that particular situation, it was me that was really obeying the judgment of the court. And my chairman was disobeying the judgment of the court. If somebody proceeds to an appeal, just proceeding to appeal doesn't mean that the Court of Appeal has already taken a decision. In fact, when we now had the first sitting of the court basically advised the side that went on appeal to basically withdraw their, well, not the appeal, but they had a motion of stay of execution. In other words, to say, now look, the judgment of the lower court should not be executed. The court didn't do that. Instead, the court said, now look, are you ready to argue your appeal? They said, yes, okay. They now set the date for the appeal to be heard. Therefore, I remain, according to the judgment of the court, the candidate, and has every legal right to proceed with mobilizing, because time is going.
In view of what you've told us now, is there a link between that and this whole issue of membership of the SDP in the coalition that was built or that is being built for parties to take on the ruling party in government. Okay. Where do you stand on that?
Well, it's a party thing, it's not an individual thing. I certainly initially facilitated the coming together, of that, but I understand now certain decisions have been taken. I'm not aware as to the position. I think the right person would be Chief Olufalaye to ask him about that. But in terms of the support for my candidature, I'm delighted to announce and to publicly declare, because all of them were at a function I organized, just last Saturday, most of them, that most of the National Working Committee, about 12 of them, most of them have expressed publicly and have even attended functions that I've organized to say, look, there is no need to go to appeal on this. If the High Court is willing, they are willing and very delighted to really, as it were, allow me to go in, because I mobilized this, we will mobilize together this party, the SDP. I was the chairman of the National Steering Committee.